The following program is an original production of WYCC PBS Chicago.
I'm Tim Eaton, President of the Chicago Bar Association. Welcome to the Chicago Bar Association's Justice and Law Weekly. Judges are empowered with making legal decisions that affect our daily lives. What is their role and what are their responsibilities? Joining me to discuss the role of the judiciary in our society are Justice Mary Seminaris-Shostak and Justice Michael Hyman. Justice Mary Seminaris-Shostak was appointed to serve as an associate judge in the Circuit Court of Lake County in 1998. She was appointed as a circuit judge in 2001 and was elected in 2002. She was appointed an Illinois appellate judge in 2008 and was elected to that position in 2010. In addition to several other civic activities, she is the immediate past president of the Illinois Judges Association. This association consists of over 1,250 current and retired judges and supports judicial excellence, professional development, and judicial education. Welcome, Justice Shostak.
Thank you.
Justice Michael B. Hyman was appointed to the Circuit Court of Cook County in 2006. He was elected to a county-wide judicial seat for a full 6-year term in 2008. He was appointed to the First Appellate District of Illinois in 2012. Before joining the judiciary, Justice Hyman was a principal at the Chicago law firm of Much Shallis. In addition to many other civic activities, Justice Hyman is the current president of the Illinois Judges Association and a past president of the Chicago Bar Association. Welcome, Justice Hyman.
Glad to be here.
So both of you have served in different capacities as judges. You're now in the appellate court. Let me start first with you, Justice Shostak. What are the various judicial positions within the state court system?
In the state court, we have the trial court, where most people are familiar with a trial court. If you have a traffic ticket, you go to the trial court. If you're going to get a divorce, you go to the trial court. Within the trial court, we have judges. As you said, we have Cook County. I think there are over 400 judges in the Cook County trial courts. In that, you have associate judges who are appointed, or you have circuit judges who are typically elected.
Now, who appoints the associate judges?
The circuit judges.
I see.
So the judges who are elected appoint the associate judges.
And do they have the same responsibilities? Are their roles any different?
Roles are not different at all. The only difference is they were appointed by the circuit judges, and the circuit judges are elected by the people. And then we have within the court system in Illinois, after the trial courts, we have the appellate court. So if you don't like what that trial court judge did on your divorce case, you can always appeal to the appellate court. And we have 5 appellate court districts in the state of Illinois. And at the appellate court level, we hear at the appellate court probably 90% of the cases that people appeal because we don't have a choice. We have to hear every case that comes to us unless we don't have jurisdiction.
And you sit in the 2nd District of the Appellate
Correct.
Court, which is Lake, DuPage, so it's some of the suburban counties outside of
Correct.
Cook County.
It runs from Lake Michigan to the Mississippi River, so it's the top 13 counties in the state. So we're the 2nd District, Cook is the 1st District. Appellate.
And then is there a level above the appellate court?
If you don't like what we do, you can always appeal to the Supreme Court. And they sit in Springfield, also elected. All of the appellate court justices are elected to a 10-year term, and the Supreme Court justices are elected to a 10-year term. There are some appellate court judges who are appointed by the Supreme Court to sit and do not have to run for election.
Now, are the Supreme Court justices elected statewide, or are they elected from
Within
appellate
their
districts?
appellate district as well.
So there is a justice of the Supreme Court that's elected from your district, from the 2nd District?
Correct. That would be Justice Bob Thomas.
And what about Cook County? Or how many justices do they have in the Supreme Court?
I believe 3.
Correct.
3 justices.
Justice Burke, Justice Freeman, and Justice Tice.
Great. So those are those are the judges that comprise the state court system.
That's correct.
Justice Hyman, how about the federal court? We have judges there as well.
We have judges there. Well, the federal system is a mirror image of the state system, and there's trial courts. I kind of think of the court system as a tree. The roots of the tree, where the facts come out, is a trial court. And there are, here in Cook County, it's the Northern District of Illinois is the trial court. And there are different districts within the state of Illinois that handle the federal trial cases. If there is someone who wants to appeal to the higher level, it's a Seventh Circuit. Seventh Circuit is made up of the states of Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana. And there are judges then that are appointed by the president with the advice and consent of the Senate, both for the trial court and for the appellate court. And the same goes for the Supreme Court, which is in Washington, D.C. Those justices, too, are at the selection of the president with the advice and consent of the Senate.
Now, some of us have heard of other judges in the federal system. I believe they're called magistrate judges. How are they selected?
They're selected like the associate judges in our system. Magistrate judges are selected by the district court judges to sit, and they sit for 14-year terms.
And they report, do they, like the associate judges in the state system, have the same powers and responsibilities as the federal district court judge?
It's a little different system in the federal courts in that most of the magistrates handle, there are different, under the Constitution, they don't have the same constitutional powers as a district court judge. They hear many of the preliminary criminal cases, and they will hear a trial case by assignment or by agreement of the parties, and they will also make recommendations on various motions and civil cases to the district court.
Now, I know you both have been elected to the circuit court, and you're sitting by appointment in the appellate court currently, and Justice Shostak, you've run for both the circuit court and the appellate court. So I'm a lawyer. If I want to become a judge and run for the position, what are some of the steps you go through to become a judge?
Well, as we talked about earlier, for an associate judge, it's basically like you're running for judge because you are letting the circuit judges know that you're interested in that position. Mm-hmm. So it is somewhat of like running for election. If you're running on the ballot, then you have to get your name on the ballot. You have to circulate petitions. Then you get on the ballot. You have to campaign. When you're a judge, you're campaigning. Some of the rules are a little different than if you're running for Senate and campaigning. If you're a judge, you really can't solicit money.
So I can't pick up the phone and call people and say, give me $1,000.
No, you cannot. You have to have someone else getting your campaign funds for you. And technically, you're not allowed to know who has given you money or how much they have given you. Sometimes that can be difficult when you're running for judge. Also, when you're running for judge, unlike if you're running for a political office, say Senate or congressman, you can't get on your soapbox and espouse your beliefs or your views, because we as judges cannot do that, and you're not permitted to do that. So you're running for a judge, and you're really, your hands are tied when people come up to you and say, what's your position on gun control? Or what's your position on, this? Or what's your position on that? Those are issues we may have to rule on in the future. Therefore, we cannot discuss them with anybody when we're out in public. So when we're running for judge, it's a little difficult to run for judge when you're out there and people start asking you questions, and you're really not the same type of politician as others.
It's particularly difficult in Cook County because it's a large county.
You've run in Cook County. You know how large it is.
Yes, and what the public really needs to do is understand who the individuals are. And the best way is the CBA goes through and evaluates every candidate. And some candidates don't go before the CBA because they refuse to. Well, those candidates aren't recommended as qualified by the CBA, and for good reason, because they should go before a body of their peers to be evaluated. And those judges that are evaluated, those evaluations are made public, and people should rely on the CBA to do the homework that really needs to be done to make sure we have the best judges available as members of our judiciary. Because once someone wins an election as judge of the circuit court, then they must, every 6 years, run for retention. And retention means there's no opponent. They just have to receive 60% of the votes that are given It needs 60% yes vote to be retained. And so in the last 22 years in Cook County, I believe no one has lost a retention election. And so again, the CBA is there, and we thank you on behalf of the judiciary for seeing to it that our judges are looked at, evaluated, analyzed to make sure that they're doing the job that we expect judges to do.
Well, thank you, because I know that there's a number of CBA members that put in a lot of hours calling people who've appeared before the judge, calling other judges, and trying to do their homework in terms of whether this judge should stay on the ballot. Now, when you first run as a judge, you run in a primary as a Democrat or a Republican.
Correct.
And then you're elected in the general with that label. Do you still carry that label when you're up for retention? Are you
No.
listed as either party? At that point, you're just voting on whether you're a judge that should stay on the bench or not.
Correct.
Is that right?
And that's a very important point. Judges are apolitical once they're elected. The system that we have for electing judges requires you to run as part of a party. But once you're elected, that party affiliation really disappears. I don't know, when you appear before a judge or a money judge, you don't know if they're Democrat or Republican. It doesn't matter. Because
shouldn't.
No,
it
it
shouldn't
shouldn't.
matter at all.
Right.
And it doesn't. And that's why retention is the way it is, and it's a better system where you don't have to run on party affiliation anymore. And we are not politicians. We are a different branch of government. The politicians are in the executive branch, which is the governors or the presidents, attorney general, and those sort, or they're in the legislature, which are your state senators, the state representatives, or your congress people in Washington. That's different. Those are politicians. They do different things than us. We are not politicians. And in fact, just recently, the Illinois Supreme Court had a decision where they said specifically that a state's attorney is not part of the judiciary. And that makes sense.
So when you're running for judge, can you go to political events and
You
be
have-
introduced? You have to
You
go
have
till
to.
you meet the voters.
And as Justice Hyman said, we're not politicians. Unfortunately, when you're running, you are thrust into politics. Whether you like it or not, you have to go out to political events and meet people and talk to people. And it's a system that we can have a show and discuss all day on whether election or merit selection is the way to go with judges. We aren't technically politicians, but we're thrust into a political world when we have to run. And it is unfortunate. But once we put on that black robe, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, it should make no difference.
So if I were elected a judge in 2012 and I went to all these political events, as I had to meet the voters, and now it's 2014, can I still go to those events and endorse candidates and be active when I'm not up for retention?
No, there are rules, a code that we as judges must abide by. And part of that code is that we will not endorse candidates when we are not ourselves up for election. And again, these rules, these codes are enforced in order to keep us neutral, independent, honest, to protect our integrity. And so when judges are often portrayed in the newspaper as being political in various reasons because they may have run previously on a ticket of either Democrat or Republican. But once, again, as Justice Shostak said, we take that oath of office. We are objective and aren't considering at all those political aspects in making any decisions. And that's hard for people to understand because of the way the system operates.
Right. Let's go through a typical day for a judge. And I'm going to, since you're both in the appellate court, that typical day may vary from a trial judge. So you both have been trial judges. Let's talk about that in a minute. I mean, there's been some criticism, if you will, when television crews come in and they see an empty courtroom in the afternoon. What is a typical judge's day? What do you do as judges from the time you come in the morning and the time you leave in the evening? Can one of you address that, Justice Shostak?
Well, in the morning, you typically get into work around 8:30 in the morning and you look at your call and you make sure that you're prepared for that particular day. Let's say, for instance, you're in a felony courtroom and you're hearing felony criminal matters. You get on the bench around 9 o'clock and you're typically on the bench all morning hearing cases, you know, maybe pre-trials, maybe arraignments. You're on the bench most of the morning from 9 to 12. Sometimes you'll set hearings for the afternoon, maybe a motion to suppress a statement may be set for the afternoon. Sometimes maybe that hearing falls through, the lawyers resolve the case, and then you don't have anything in the afternoon. That doesn't mean the judge is home. That doesn't mean the judge is doing nothing. The judge is back in his chambers preparing, reading case law,
so all those briefs that we write, you're reading them then
Absolutely.
to be prepared.
All the briefs that the lawyers prepare, all of the case law that we decide at the appellate court or the Supreme Court, they're preparing for the next day or for a case that they may have to rule on or write a decision on. There's a lot of work that goes on in the judiciary that doesn't always go on in front of the eyes of the public or doesn't always go on in the courtroom.
So just because there's no one in the courtroom at that given moment doesn't mean the work isn't being done by the judge and by the judge's staff.
It's sort of like, think about it when you go to a doctor. When the doctor visits you in the office, that's FaceTime. But the doctor is also in his or her office preparing to see you again and look at your records and then afterwards making notes and so forth. The same thing for judges. And most of our judges, it is a job where we bring home homework. My briefcase is battered from being overloaded with briefs that the lawyers write. It's a busy job, and in order to do it right, there is a lot of work, and we're not always on the bench, even though you would think that the work is always done in the courtroom, but it isn't. That's only half the job.
Now, you both have been very active in the Illinois Judges Association, and Judge Shostak, you're the immediate past president, and Judge Simon, you're the current president. Why don't we start with Justice Shostak? Tell us a little bit about what the IJ is. I gave a little bit of information in my introduction. I guess the first question is, do all judges have to belong? Is it required?
No, they do not all have to belong.
And why do judges become part of the Illinois Judges Association?
Well,
what does it offer to them?
It offers a lot, in my opinion. I think that as judges, it offers camaraderie that you don't have as lawyers. You have a lot of camaraderie with each other. We are really limited to discussing cases with each other. If we want to bounce something off someone, you can't call a friend who's a lawyer and say, "Hey, I've got this case. Tell me what you think." The Illinois Judges Association is a voice for the judges first and foremost. Judges are limited in what they can discuss and what they can comment about. So the organization is the conduit for that. As I said, it also is a great place to meet judges from throughout our great state. You know, just because you're a judge in DuPage County or Cook County or Lake County, it doesn't mean that you don't have things in common or that you don't have things you can bounce off of a judge from downstate. So it's a great place to meet judges. It's a great place to develop relationships with judges as well. We are often very active in legislation that may affect the bench and the judiciary, that the organization can take care of. Our organization has committees, educational committees, where we go out into the schools, talk to students, and we encourage judges throughout the state to get involved. As the past president of the Illinois Judges Association, one of my goals was to put judges front and center. Because as you touched on, oftentimes the press will say, well, we went to this courtroom and the judge wasn't there. And they try to put judges in a negative light. What my goal was, and I think I was successful, was to put judges in a positive light. Put judges out there to let the public know that not only do we sit on the bench and hear cases, but we go into the schools and we talk to kids about drug awareness. And we talk to the kids and we teach them how to read and we teach them how to learn about the judiciary and that branch of government. So the Illinois Judges Association has many roles. I'll let Michael talk about some that he feels, Justice Hyman, that he feels are important, but those are some of the roles that I feel that Illinois Judges Association excels at.
Great. Justice Hyman?
Well, we have three tremendous programs. One which is started by Judge Shostak, which is Read It Forward. And the idea of that was to bring judges into elementary schools and have them read a book about Abraham Lincoln and his hat, and discuss what a judge is, wear maybe the robe, and answer questions for young children about the judiciary. We also have a program for high school students, which is 7 Reasons to Leave the Party. Why?
That's not the Republican Party either.
This is why you shouldn't do drugs and alcohol,
Right.
and the problems with that. And what we do is we give each of the students, after they hear the program, which is very emotionally strong program, a contract that they sign with their parents or guardian to say that they won't drink and drive because of the ramifications for their future. Just a little mistake of doing that. There's a reason that we have laws that young people shouldn't drink and drive or do drugs. There's reasons for that. And we are trying to get out there and tell the ramifications for the court system if you get in trouble.
So it sounds like your purpose is to meet them off the bench so they don't have to appear
Absolutely.
before you when you're on,
We're
the
on the
bench.
bench. And then we have a third program where we bring the Constitution in the classroom, where we talk about a Supreme Court case involving a high school and a locker and whether it can be searched or not. And we get students in debate and to talk about our system of government and how the court system works. So we are doing all of that. In addition, this year I have created a public affairs and outreach program to go to communities and churches and community groups to again present the judge in an atmosphere where we're not on the bench, where we can talk to our community people so they can learn about us and see that we are just like them and we have the same concerns and fears that they have, and that we are committed to seeing that justice is done for those that come to appear before us. And I don't think you know that unless you have a sense of who we are.
Do you think people feel comfortable when you first meet them, when they know you're a judge, if they've not been around judges before? Is that one of the reasons, is to give them that comfort level?
I think one of my goal in bringing judges into the grade school kids, well, you know, it's been discovered that children learn to read up until the 3rd grade, and they read to learn thereafter. So if they can't read, they can't learn. So that's why I felt this program was so important in assisting kids to learn how to read. Also, it also helps kids not fear the justice system, because in a lot of the schools that we go into, they may have had a different interaction with the court system via a family member. So we want them to see that we're not bad people, that judges aren't bad people, police officers aren't bad people. The court system isn't always something where something bad happens. So in order to get them to have a relationship or to relate to a judge as a human being, I think is a great thing. It's no different with an adult. A lot of adults out there perceive a judge as being somebody you see when something bad happens. I think it's great to put judges front and center in a positive light, because the press sometimes tries to put us front and center in a bad light, and sometimes it's fair and sometimes it's not fair.
So what you're doing is actually not only putting judges in a more favorable light, but I think, as you said, the system as well, because if people feel comfortable being around judges, that's kind of the focal point of the whole judicial system.
Right.
Fairness, trust.
Right.
And there's a tendency today to not read newspapers. This is across the board, and get more entertainment news than and sports news seems to prepare. It seems to have most of the attention of the public. In this way, we want people to know what we are in the judiciary, and that we are a separate branch of government, what we do, how we do it, and who we are.
Educate them.
Great. Now, there's been some discussion in the past about lawyers talking to judges and being around judges during trials, and I think you alluded to it, Justice Shostak, earlier when you said that the IJA is for judges to be able to talk to fellow judges because there are certain limitations. Are there limitations, like during a case that's before you, to be able to talk to one of the lawyers about their feelings about the case outside of the courtroom?
Yes, you can't have, that would be called an ex parte conversation. When you're on trial or you're before a judge on a particular case, or you have a case pending before a particular judge, if you're going to talk to the judge about that case, all parties must be present.
So when people go to the courtroom, they should be assured that this judge has not spoken individually to either one of the lawyers, that they're hearing the motions or the case at the time from both sides.
Correct.
And there's no inside influence going on, because I know that there's that perception that certain lawyers have influence over certain judges. And what you're saying, that's just not true.
No, as Justice Hyman said, we have to be fair and impartial jurists. One of our canons of ethics requires that if there is an appearance of impropriety, that's a problem. So if somebody perceives that we're being improper, if we're being biased or prejudiced, that's not a good thing. So as judges must be aware at all times that if they look like they're too buddy-buddy with one of the lawyers that's in front of them, maybe they really aren't, but if the people, the litigants in the courtroom perceive that, it's not a good thing. So we have to be, our sense has to be heightened at all times. We always have to be aware of what our appearance is, what others perceive from judges. Sometimes it's a difficult role as a judge, because you really have to step it up a notch, if you will, not like, lawyers don't. But as a judge, you have to be aware at all times. I remember when I first became a judge, one of the other judges said to me, now you can't go to the grocery store in a baseball cap and dressed in torn up jeans. You have to play the part of a judge at all times. And
even outside of
true.
the courtroom.
Outside of the courtroom.
It's a job. It's 24/7.
It is.
Yes.
And the rules that regarding our conduct are 24/7. And you may see a judge might get a ticket for driving under the influence. That's a serious offense for a judge.
Right.
Very serious. It's more serious than for an individual because of who we are and what we do. All of these rules have to do with perception. Justice, if perceived as unjust, is not justice. So the reality might be different, and we know what the reality is, but we can't allow this perception to persist. So we do have all these rules to make sure judges are objective and protected from influences.
Thank you very much. Justice Shostak, Justice Hyman, thank you for educating us about the
you.
critical role judges play in our society and why an independent judiciary is so important. I'm Tim Eaton. Thank you for watching Justice and Law Weekly.